Hello, my name is Ashley Newhall. I'm with the Department of Ag and Resource Economics, as well as a member of the Ag Law Education Initiative, and today I will be discussing the liability waiver in the context of ways to limit liability on your agritourism operation or your farm if you have visitors come on. So, do you give tours on your farm operation, or do people come and knock on your door and ask to see either the cows, the calves, the poultry you might have in barns, the vegetable operation? They want to see your fruit trees. If this happens to you and your answer is yes, you may have liability concerns about those visitors. There's always a risk of injury no matter what activity those visitors are participating in on your farm, whether that's picking fruit or whether that is just walking through corrals or whether they're seeing how your commodity barn looks. Anything that can be done on your farm does have some sort of risk involved. And you may consider having these visitors sign a liability waiver to help protect yourself. With that said, when either creating your liability waiver or better yet, asking your attorney to help you create a liability waiver, you would probably like to consider a few different items. I'll start with one. What type of property use and or activities will the waiver cover? You'll want to define all activities in detail. What will they be doing on your property? And you would want to state specifically the use permitted under the waiver. So what activities are actually permitted under the waiver and which are not? Next, under what terms may the person or group enter your property? Do they require a scheduled appointment, or can they show up unannounced? Can they come knock up on your door? Do they need a guide with them, maybe one of your employees, or does it require you to be there with them at all times, or can they go freely throughout your farm? You'll want to state that in the waiver. And you'll also want to include a place for people and visitors to put their names or groups that are participating in that activity, which is kind of a common sense, but just to make sure that there is a place where they can either sign their name or put the group name down. Next, you would want to include a description of the land that the liability waiver covers. So, does it only cover where the animals are located? Does it only cover where your fruit and vegetable gardens are? Does it only cover where the barns are? Or does it not cover certain areas? Does it not cover your cornfield? Does it not cover your soybean field? You'll want to include that. You'll want to describe the boundaries and the size of the land. And you'll also want to describe the areas of the land that are off limits to visitors and also safety zones around buildings, barns, pastures, and houses. You'll also want to choose a specified location of entry and exit and require that visitors check in and out at this certain location. And this location of entry and exit should be stated on the waiver. This is important to help deter trespassers from walking across your land without you knowing that they're actually on your land. And maybe they're not trespassers, maybe they are there to visit. However, you want them to sign your liability waiver before entering your property, or maybe you do require that they have a guide with them on your property. So you do want to make sure that the entry and exit is very clear so you don't have people wandering around the property without you knowing. And you'll also want to describe any specifics that may be particularly harmful about your property. For example, are there wild animals? Are there sharp edges that people should be aware of when going around certain barns? Is there poison ivy on a wall? You'll want to make sure to point these out in your liability waiver. The more you can inform the visitor, the more coverage you have from liability. You'll also want to include language that means guests will not sue or attempt to make a claim against you, the landowner, regarding their land use and activities. So a really good statement that you'll see in most liability waivers is this: the user agrees, so the visitor agrees to indemnify and hold harmless the landowner, that's you yourself. This is a perfect example. If you have this language on your liability waiver, then you will be good with that language. If the person or group is under 18 years of age, you want to make sure to include a guardian signature line. You want to consider noting that anyone under 18 years must be accompanied by an adult and that the adult also agrees to indemnify and hold harmless the landowner for injuries to the child. Again, so if you have a person under 18 years of age, you'll want to also have this language to make sure that the person, the guardian, won't sue for the child. If your venture deals with hunting on your property, it's wise to incorporate firearm guidelines and require that all hunters have completed a hunter safety course. This is important just to make sure that you're covering your bases, that the people that are hunting are knowledgeable on what it is they should and should not be doing. And this will just kind of cover yourself again, just keeping liability at a minimum. It's also wise to prohibit alcohol consumption on your land during any of your activities. This is only if, obviously, you're not a vineyard or a brewery. You probably won't include this. Or if you're holding a wedding on your property, this is probably something you won't include. However, if you're allowing people to hunt on your farm, you'll probably want to include this. Or if there's children touring the farm, this might be something to include as well. You'll also consider including in the waiver that the forum that the waiver will be construed under will be the state of Maryland laws. This would be different if your farm is in Pennsylvania or if your farm is in New Jersey. However, as you may know, in Maryland, you have visitors driving through during the summer that may want to stop and visit and pick peaches off of your peach tree, and they might be from New York. You don't want to have to be called into court in New York. So this statement will require that if they sue you, that they'll have to come to Maryland, and that the state laws of Maryland will be the guidance for the waiver. Something else that's very important to consider is updating your risk management plan. You'll want to talk with your insurance agent to make sure your insurance coverage covers activities that will take place on your farm. So if you haven't had visitors come on your farm in the past and you're considering doing more agritourism, you'll want to talk to your insurance agent to make sure that your insurance coverage does actually protect that activity. You'll also want to determine if you need to incorporate a business structure into the farm, such as an LLC or a corporation to help protect your operation. And if you've seen any of our other videos, we have a whole chain of videos that discusses the pros and cons of each business entity and the considerations you want to take into account when considering to use one. A sample liability waiver can be found at the link http, etc. And this is a screenshot of the liability waiver. It is a sample. It's for your educational resource purposes, and it's something that can kind of put a visual picture and not just going through the checklist for you to see. Thank you, and I hope this has been informational. If you have any questions, feel free to reach me at my phone number, 301-458-5125, as well as my email, anewhall@umd.edu. Please contact me with any questions you may have, and thank you for listening.